One of the biggest reasons I see people who try to make indie games fail is because they lose motivation. It's not because they can't do it, and it's not because they're lazy, it's just that the amount of work it takes to develop video games can sometimes feel absolutely impossible to overcome, and people don't know how to keep going. I'm 3Gnomes, a solo indie game developer, and I'm not immune to that. Motivation is hard to sustain, but with a few little tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, you can establish some habits and a mindset that will help you keep moving forward. Tip number 1, start small and keep thinking small. I see so many people start making a game and they're excited and they're making progress, and then they finish the first thing they're working on, like the main character for example, and then they're suddenly stuck trying to figure out, where do I go from here? And a lot of people will stop at this point. My advice for anyone who finds themselves in this position is to start small. Hyper-focus in on one thing that you can do, and realistically, it doesn't even matter what it is. Just find something small and do it. For me, it was coins. I made my main character in a couple levels, and even though I knew what I wanted the whole game to be, I couldn't figure out what I actually needed to do next. There was so much that I had to do. Where was I supposed to start? Well, I chose one small thing that I could do, which was making collectible coins, and I did that. And then when that was set up, I found another small little thing to do, and I focused on that. And piece by piece, my game started to come together more and more, and I was making progress. And I couldn't do that if I didn't shift my attention from the big picture to little individual tasks that I could feasibly do. For example, think about a puzzle. How do you start? You look at the box to understand what you're doing in general, you know what it's supposed to look like when it's done. This is sort of like reviewing your design document. And then you look at what you've got laid out on the table and you begin with small tasks. A lot of people will start with the edge pieces and focus on making the frame for the puzzle first, sort of like creating the core mechanics for your game, and then everything else will be built off of this. And then, when that's completed, they just start looking for little things to do. It might be finding a few pieces that all go together, or grouping the pieces into what part they likely are, such as, the blue is water, the land is green, and then you start putting those little pieces together. The point is, it doesn't matter how you do it, but a puzzle gets put together by putting a bunch of tiny little pieces together first. The more you focus on the tiny sections, the less you're paying attention to how much is still left to go. And then eventually, when you've been working this way, you look up at the big picture again and realize it's actually starting to look like it's supposed to. So start small and keep working small, because games are made by putting together a whole bunch of very small pieces that will make the big picture. Second, if you're an indie game developer, you should only work on games that you are passionate about. That's one of the best parts about being an indie game developer. You get to make games that you want to play. You don't need to work on projects that you don't care about. That's kind of the trade-off. Being an indie game dev is a gamble. It's less stable than a regular job in game development, but the trade-off is that it allows you the freedom to make the games you want to make. And that's exciting. I have multiple ideas on the back burner for games I want to make when my current project is done, and that's exciting. I can do that. Coming up with game ideas is one of the best parts of this whole thing. You dream up a game and then you bring it to life. That's why I was so surprised to see so many other people who were trying to get into indie game development literally just asking me to tell them what type of game to make. Telling me they don't have an idea and asking me to give them an idea for a game. I can't. I won't. Coming up with a game idea is one of the best parts, and I'm gonna say something that might be controversial, but if you don't have an idea that you passionately want to see come to life, do not make an indie game. If you're not passionate about the game you're making, you are not going to have the motivation to learn what you need to learn and put in the work to bring that game to life. And even if you did, if you don't care about the game, why should anyone else? And in that same vein, don't make games just because you think they'll sell. So many people start game dev and want to make MMORPGs because they're big and they bring in a lot of people, supposedly. But unless you passionately need to make that type of game, it's a pointless cash grab, and people will be able to tell that's why you're doing it. It won't break through the overcrowded market, and it'll just be a waste of time. And again, I doubt you'd be able to stay motivated to make it happen. So again, only make games that you are passionate about making. Third, look for opportunities to learn something new and look at them as opportunities. For me, it's exciting when I realize that there's some new thing that I get to learn about with game dev. For example, recently I discovered that I didn't really know that much about the system that's used to switch cinema machine cameras in Unity. Now some people might get stressed because it's something new that they have to wrap their minds around, but for me, I see that opportunity in it. When I learn how to smoothly switch cameras or cut from one to the other, I'll be able to play around with that in my game and do new things. It's about the mindset of embracing knowledge, and when you realize that watching tutorials and learning new systems can be fun to play with, you can create a nice cycle of tutorial hopping, which will propel you from one small task to another. It's a great cycle to keep you motivated. Fourth, find some way to document your progress. It's way too easy to feel like you haven't really done anything when you're working on a game because progress is slow, especially if you're working by yourself. It can feel like you're stuck in place. Now, that's just your mind playing with you, but that's why it's a good idea to document the things that you do and show how your game is growing and changing. For me, this was my Devlog series, where now I can look back a year ago and see that I didn't even have a character to play with when I started, and now I've gotten multiple levels done, so many enemies, new mechanics. I'm clearly making progress, and it's easy to track because I've been documenting the process for myself and others to see. It doesn't have to be YouTube devlogs either though. It can be anything. You can share on social media, you can write a blog, you can join my Discord and show off your progress there if you want. If you're interested, the link is in the description, and I would love to see the progress you make on your game, and documenting it in this way or any way will remind your brain that you are moving forward, and that is very motivational. Fifth, think about your game when you're not at your computer. This will get you excited to get home and work on your game. For me, it's easy. I work a factory job during the day, so a lot of manual labor, but I don't really need to think that much about what I'm doing. So my mind is free to think about my game. I will often spend hours at work thinking about what I'm going to do when I get home, thinking about ideas of things that would be cool, and that anticipation is exciting. So when I get home, I am so ready to work. Anticipation builds motivation. 6. Don't be afraid to optimistically dream about the future. I mean, let's be honest, we all want to make games that blow up and get super popular like Hollow Knight or Undertale, and it's not wrong to want that. Believing that your game is something that people will love is incredibly valuable for staying motivated. Having a hopeful mindset for the future will help inspire you. Use that. Just don't be heartbroken if your game isn't the next Minecraft. 7. When you're feeling overwhelmed and you've got a lot of big things to do, don't be afraid to make something small for yourself as a little treat. For example, I added these cute little sheep to one of the levels in my game that serve no purpose at all, but I think it makes me happy to hit them, or play with them. That sounds mean. And this is good for your mental health. Reward yourself with fun things sometimes. It might not be necessarily important to your game, but if it's fun, chances are your players will enjoy this as well. 8. This is something you've probably heard before, but don't compare yourself to others, compare yourself to how you used to be. If you're making games, you're learning and you're getting better all the time. You're doing great. But if you compare your game to other games, you're probably going to feel discouraged. My game is nothing compared to Super Mario Odyssey, but compared to how it used to be, it's pretty damn good. Your own progress is what you should use as your bar of reference. You are doing incredible things compared to what you used to be doing. Remember that, and use that to motivate you to see how great you can be. 9, and this one is simple. Just be kind to yourself. Game dev is hard. Remember that. It's not easy, but you're doing it, and that in and of itself is incredible. Most people never do. You'll never get anywhere if you don't learn to be proud of your own work. 10. Also, it's good to join a community of other indie game developers. If you want, you can join my Discord. We're very friendly, and I personally love seeing people follow their dreams and share their work. Otherwise, there are also several other inspiring communities you can find pretty easily here on YouTube if you look around at all. And being a part of a community, talking to other people about your work, seeing what other people are creating is incredibly motivating and reminds you that you are not alone. That's important. 11, and some people might disagree with me on this, but don't be afraid to take small breaks. Emphasis on small. I see too many people take a break and never touch their game again, and eventually they just start a new one. Don't be that person. But it's okay when you're feeling like you've hit a block to work on another creative project or just play a video game for a while. Sometimes pushing yourself isn't the right call. On occasion, when I need to, I'll take a break for a couple of days to just play a video game or work on my side project for a while. For example, recently I've been playing Elden Ring, and I am working on a 3D art speculative biology project, if that's making any sense to you. And maybe this project will be a game of its own someday, but maybe it won't. Regardless, it charges my battery, and when I jump back into my indie game, I'm so much more motivated to keep going. Sometimes, stepping away for a short while is the best way to stay inspired. And last, Sometimes you do have to push. There are times when I just don't want to work on my game and it's been days, or I keep making excuses and I just have to push myself to work on it anyway. It's not easy, but sometimes it's necessary. And I found a couple mental tricks that help me do it when I'm not feeling it. First, try opening your project and the software you use and just stepping away for a few minutes. Sometimes for me, just knowing that it's open and it's not going to be a big deal at all to just sit down there for a minute and work on it gets me to actually work on it. Also, just finding the smallest thing that I can do, like moving an object or fixing a tiny mistake, just something that I know won't take anything more than, a couple minutes to do, it will lead me down a rabbit hole that propels me into working on my game for hours. Ultimately, it's all just about making it easy on yourself and finding the tricks that work. Do you have any tips or tricks that you use to stay motivated? You should share them in the comments because I'm sure it will help me and a lot of other people out. Also, please subscribe to my channel. I am getting closer to 1,000 subscribers, and honestly, it might not mean much to you to just click a button, but I swear it means so much to me every time I see a new subscriber. So please hit that. Feel free to join my Discord community. Again, it's linked in the comments. Thank you so much for listening, and I genuinely hope that if you have trouble staying motivated working on your game, that this helps you. Good luck, friends.